today we will continue on chapter 7, Kingdom of Plantae, in which last week we have learned on the origin and evolutions of plants and also plant adaptation, in which in plant adaptations including their shoot system, the root system, how the vascular tissue, the water conservation from haploid to diploid dominance, and also from how they adapt to become a seed and also the pollen. So this week we will look on the four major groups of plant, including vascular plant, non-vascular plant, seedless, and also with flower. So plants group first, we're gonna look on the non-vascular plants, which also known as the bryophytes, in which these non-vascular plants are seedless and flowerless, and then they have a very simple internal transport system, and they are non-vascular plant because they are lack of true roots, stems, and also leaves. The next group of plants are vascular plants, the first vascular plants, however, they are seedless, okay? And these vascular plants do have internal tissue system, which is referred to the vascular system, that conduct the water and solute through the roots, the stem, and also the leaf, but they not bear any seed and also flower, which is this group is known as pteridophytes. Next is vascular plants that do have seed, however, they do not have a flower. So this type of plant known as a gymnosperm, such as a conifer that have a true vascular plants and also have seed. And last but not least is that a group of plants that have a seed, flower, and also vascular system, and it is known as angiosperm that do have true vascular tissue that could bear seeds and also flower. So again, four phylums or four groups of plants: bryophytes, pteridophytes, gymnosperm, and angiosperm, in which bryophytes do not have vascular system, seedless, and also they are flowerless. However, pteridophytes only have vascular system, no seed and flower. Gymnosperm, they are flowerless but have a vascular system and also bear seeds. And last but not least is angiosperm that do have a vascular system, seed formations, and also flower. So now we're gonna look on the subgroup of each of these plant groups, in which under non-vascular plants, bryophytes, we're gonna look on the phylum hepatophytes, anthocerophytes, and bryophytes. For vascular plants, which is seedless, we got pteridophytes. We're gonna look on the phylum Lycophyta and Pterophyta. For the group of gymnosperm, ginkgo, cycad, xenophyta, and also conifero. Last but not least is for the group of angiosperm, we're gonna look on the phylum of Anthophyta. So first, bryophytes, the non-vascular plants group. They can be divided into three phylum: the mosses, liverworts, and also hornworts. So bryophyte is considered as a lower plant because they do not have or lack of vascular system, meaning to say absence of roots and also shoots. Its small morphology will permit water and nutrient to be transported without the vascular system, and they will use a rhizoid as for water and also nutrient absorption, and then cannot survive in non-watery habitat because the sperm is motile by means of flagella, and they have small and attached sporophyte on the plants. So, however, there are several features that help bryophytes, the non-vascular plants group, to adapt with that such of conditions. conditions in which that the existence of the cuticle. Cuticle is referred to the waxy coat that with numerous stomata that will prevent excessive water loss of these bryophytes. And they also have a cellular protective jacket surround the sperm producing and also egg producing parts of the plant that will prevent the plants from drying out. And they do have large gametophytes that are not dependent. They do not get nutrients from the sporophytes. So instead, the embryo of the sporophytes will begin life inside a female gametophyte. Okay, you have to remember bryophytes have large gametophytes. So the first group of bryophytes, the first phylum of bryophytes groups is mosses, or also known as phylum Bryophyta, and they have a egg and sperm that develop in tiny jacket vessel at the shoot tip of separate gametophytes of the moss plant, and in which the male part of the mosses is called as antheridium, meanwhile the female part of the mosses that known called as the archegonium, and they develop separately from each other. So this is how it looks like. The male part antheridium and the female part archegonia. So excuse me. So the sperm will reach the eggs by moisture, um, such as the raindrop, as you can see here, or the film of water on the plant surface. And then after fertilizations, okay, after fertilizations with the egg, the zygote will develop. Okay, the zygote will develop and each into a mature sporocyte, as you can see here. Okay, and each composed of stalk here and also a jacket structure in which inside here the spore will develop. And the sporophytes that grow, okay, the sporophytes that grow on top of the female gametophyte will remain attached, and also they nutritionally depending on the female gametophyte. And the sporophyte release, as you can see here, release the spore, and they will, upon landing on a suitable spot, it will germinate and produce a protonemato and nemata, as you can see over here. And the protonemata with a large surface area, they will bud. The budding will grow out of the protonemata and later will grow into either male gametophytes or female gametophytes. Okay, so here they grow separately, in which after the raindrops, the sperm will goes to the egg, fertilize and producing a zygote. The zygote will producing mature sporophytes that will disperse and producing protonemata. Budding will occur and they will grow into female or male gametophytes. So for sexual reproduction of bryophytes, as I mentioned earlier, the spore germinate into gametophyte composed of protonema and also gamete producing. Here is known as gametophore, and as you can see over here, they do have a rhizoid that will anchor the gametophytes to the substrate. Both male and female do have a rhizoid, and the height of the gametophyte is constrained by lack of vascular tissue. Okay, so they cannot grow very high. And mature gametophyte will produce a flagella sperm in the male gametophyte, and also they will produce an egg in each of the female gametophyte. The sperm will swim through the raindrops or the film of water to reach and fertilize egg to produce a zygote and also mature sporophyte. So the bryophyte sporophyte grow out of archegonia and are smallest and simplest sporophytes of all plant group. And the sporophytes of the mosses, remember, they do have a food and also a seta here, which is referred to the stalk, and they also have a capsule in which inside the capsule contain a sporangium in which it will discharge a spore later through a peristome over here. So the hornworts and most sporophytes, both of them have small stomata for the gas exchange. So here, as you can see, the food, the seta or the stalk, and the capsule. Okay. So for asexual reproductions of bryophytes or the mosses, and one method occur when a stem of a large clump moss dies back, resulting the clump becoming individual parts, a plant, as you can see over here. And another method occur when bits of the stem or even a single leaf of the mosses are accidentally broken off. These bits can be regenerated to form a new plant. Okay, so either through the stem or the single leaf or the mosses. So some mosses do produce specialized structure called as a brood bodies, which is a small plantlet that detach from the parent plants and they will grow into a new identical copy of their parents. Okay, so examples of the mosses or the phylum of bryophytes are pit mosses. So pit mosses, also known as sphagnum, in which they have many dead cells that will absorb and hold water. They can be harvested and dried, in which later will be burned to generate electricity. So pit are highly acidic, with which kept bodies buried under it preserved. So most often, the pit harvested came across well preserved body, which aged from 2,000 to 3,000 years ago in pit box, as you can see here. The Tolen man, okay, the one that being preserved by the pit mosses, and as you can see in figure A here, the sphagnum or the pit moss will form an extensive deposit of partially decayed organic material that known as a pit. So next group of bryophytes are phylum of hepatophytes, or known as liverworts. So liverworts can produce or form a thallus, which is flattened lobe structure that could not be differentiated into leaf, stem, or roots. Okay, so they are special thallus. So these type of phylums are very restricted to damp environment, and one example of liverworts is Mercantia species, in which the female and male gametophyte is located on different plant. Same with the mosses, and could be differentiated instantly based on the morphology. So this is how the female liverworts look like, and this is how the male liverworts look like. Okay, for mercantia, and they're producing a thallus, as you can see over here. It does not look like a stem, it does not look like roots or leaves. Okay, so liverwort reproductions are through sexually or asexually. So the asexual life cycle basically similar with the another phylum just now, which is mosses. And splashing raindrops will transfer the sperm cell from the male gametophyte to underneath the rib of the female gametophyte, which is archegonium. So as in mosses that we have learned before, the sporophyte remain attached with the female gametophyte, right? So upon maturation, they will produce a spore, okay? The mature sporophytes, as you can see over here. Okay. So by asexually, they reproduce by producing gamma from the gamma cups, and again, splashes of the raindrops will help to disperse the gamma. As you can see here, for the sexual reproductions of the liverworts, they do exactly look almost look the same with the pit mosses. However, if you look on the asexual reproductions, they do have a thallus that will produce a gamma cup, in which this gamma cup contains the gamma, and this gamma will be dispersed by the raindrops. So last but not least, for the group of bryophytes, is the phylum of anthocerophytes, or also known as hornworts. So the hornwort sporophyte resemble a small grass blade, as you can see over here, and the mature spore will be released from the tip of the horn-shaped structure, and they grow horizontally. Okay, as you can see here, this is the sporophyte parts, and this is the gametophyte parts of the hornworts. So, what is the importance of mosses in terms of ecological and also economical? So mosses are capable of inhabiting the diverse and sometimes very extreme environment, but are especially common in moist forests and also wetlands. So some mosses might help to retain the nitrogen in the soil. So as the conclusion, the group of bryophytes, which is liverworts, hornworts, and also the mosses, are still dependent on water for fertilization because they need to disperse the sperm through the raindrops, and they do have a dominant gametophyte generation, Enteridia, and also Archegonia. So next, we're gonna look on the second group of plant, which is pteridophytes. So pteridophytes are the seedless plants that I mentioned earlier. They do not have seeds, and they do not have flower, and they are differ from bryophytes, which is non-vascular plant, in three key aspects. First, the sporophytes have well-developed vascular plant. The sporophyte develop independently from the gametophyte, because for bryophytes, the the sporophyte depends on the female gametophytes, and for pteridophytes, the sporophytes have longer life phase in the life cycle compared to the bryophytes. However, pteridophytes are the amphibian of the plant kingdom. This is due to the fact that their sporophytes that have a longer life cycle can live on the land. However, their gametophyte, male and female, could not live on the land because they have lack of vascular tissue, and the male gametes needs water to reach the eggs. So therefore, none of them has fully escaped the aquatic habitat. So remember, pteridophytes do have vascular plants, in which the vascular tissue including the stem and also the xylem and also the phloem. The xylem used to conduct the water and also minerals, includes the depth cell called as a trachea, and the phloem to conduct the sugar amino acid through the process of photosynthesis to the other parts of the plants. And their water conducting cells are strengthened by lignin and provide structural support, and they can increase the height was an evolutionary advantage due to the vascular system that they have. So under the groups of pteridophytes, it could be divided into two phylum pterophytes and also lycophytes. So phylum pterophytes include the ferns, horsetail, with ferns, and other relatives. For lycophytes include club mosses, spike mosses, and quillworts. So first, the phylum pterophytes of pteridophytes group. They are the most diverse seedless vascular plant, diverse in tropics, and meanwhile the horsetail, diverse during Carboniferous period. For whisper resemble ancestral vascular plants but are very close to the modern ferns. So this is the figure of how does the fern look like. As you can see, this is how the fern look like. You can normally found it here, and the horsetail and also the whisper. So for the first group of phylum pterophytes, for ferns, they are the largest and the most diverse group of seedless vascular plant. That's why I said we can easily find it. And most of the fern sporophytes have vascular and horizontal underground stem here that known as a rhizome, and the rhizome will give rise to the roots and also to the leaf that known as a fronds. Okay, so each of the young fronds that emerge in is a tightly coiled, and they then are known as a fiddleheads over here. Okay, so underneath the leaf or the frond, they are a cluster of sporangia that called as a sori, and each of the sori contain fern spore. So during the dispersal time, the sporangia will snap open, delivering the spore that will germinate into small gametophytes. So the gametophyte usually develops in water. They bear no resemblance to sporophytes, and it's very tiny shaped heart, as you can see here, very cute. And they do have content both male and female gamete, and pteridia and also archegonia. And remember, pteridophytes use water to transfer the medium because their sperm are motile, in which they do have flagella that will help the sperm to swim to the nearby female gametophyte and fertilize the egg, producing the zygote. The zygote will develop into embryo of sporophyte, and as the embryo sporophyte matures, the gametophyte will die, and the embryo sporophyte will begin its own independent life as a mature fern sporophyte on land. Remember, pteridophyte, the sporophytes are independent. However, for um, the group of the non-vascular plant, okay, the sporophyte depend on the female gametophyte. That is the difference. So as you can see here, sperm that have a flagella will swim to the egg, fertilize, producing a zygote, and producing a mature sporophyte. They will produce a sporangium inside the sori, and the sporangium will grow independently without depending on the gametophytes, and then they will disperse the spore will develop into young gametophytes. Next is phylum Whisper, still under pterophytes, still under the phylum of pterophytes. Okay, so it looked like wisp broom, as you can see here, so making them as a popular ornamental plant in tropical and also subtropical areas such as the Hawaii. So instead of having a true root in a proper vascular system, they also have a rhizome as their absorptive structure. So the whole stem are very green, therefore allowing them to photosynthesize because they do not have leaves. So small outgrowth on the photosynthetic branch stem are probably will reduce the leaves. So each of the yellow knob, okay, on the stem consists three fused sporangia, as you can see over here. So uh, the last example of phylum Pterophytes are hoster, in which the hoster are the ancient relatives of a tree-like, as you can see over here. However, the shrubby equisetum survive. This is the example, and also they do have a rhizome, same with the ferns and also the wisp fern, and they are arranged in four, as you can see here, one, four, and around the stem, and the spore produced inside the cone, as you can see over here, which shape cluster of leaf at the shoot tip known as strobilus. Okay, inside here is the place to producing the spore. And some have separate vegetative stems. Ribs have silica for structural support, causing it to have a texture as sandpaper. Okay, so the second phylum of the group of pteridophytes are phylum Lycophytes, including club mosses, spike mosses, and also quillworts. So, giant Lycophyte thrive for a million years in moist swamp. Surviving species are small herbaceous plants, club mosses, and spike mosses have vascular plants and are not true, however, not for true mosses like quillworts. So this is how does the spike mosses look like, the quillworts, okay, and also the club mosses over here. So remember, only spike mosses and also the club mosses do have a true vascular plants, not the quillwort. So first, so about 350 million years ago, the lycophytes are tree size, but now are represented by small club mosses on the forest floor, in which they do have sporophytes that has true stem, roots, and also leaf. And they do have a strobilus, remember, a cone-like structure here that becoming a place to producing the spore. So after the dispersal of the spore, they will germinate to form a very small and free-living gametophytes. Okay. So example of it is Selaginella, in which they will produce the two kind of spore, either male spore, microspore, or for female spore, known as a megaspore. Okay, so in some species, the tiny gametophyte are non-photosynthetic, causing them to become nurtured by symbiotic fungi. So we have done on the plants group of non-vascular plant and also vascular plant, which is seedless. Now we're gonna look on the vascular plants that do have a seed and also flower. So the bryophytes, the non-vascular, and pteridophytes, the vascular, which is seedless, are the both a seedless plant. Therefore, they reproduce by releasing the spore that will outgrow into gametophytes. That is, the spore is known as sporophytes. And the most successful of vascular plant are the seed-bearing plants because they have seed that can escape on dependency on the water for fertilization. Therefore, they just rely instead on the air current and also the agents such as the insect. So seed-bearing plants also have a dominant sporophyte phase, such as the angiosperm and also gymnosperm, and they are differ from seedless vascular plant in two ways, in which they are spore heterospore. They do produce microspore, which develop into a pollen grain that will carry the sperm to the female structure to accomplish pollination without relying on the water medium. They just rely on the dispersal agents such as the wind and also the animals. So this will allow the pollination even during prolonged drought. So the pollen also can be dispersed at a greater distance. And then they also produce megaspore, which is the female gametophyte that will develop into the ovules and producing the ovum. And after fertilization with the sperm from the pollen grain, they will become a seed. And this seed can resist harsh environment by being a dormant if the environment is unfavorable, and they will germinate once the environment is favorable for germination. And the offspring dispersal is of course better due to the dispersal agent. And then they also possess a water conservation trait in which, compared to the seedless vascular plant such as the pteridophytes and bryophytes, angiosperm and also gymnosperm have water conserving trait such as a thicker cuticle and also stomata. They do have pollen that contains sporopollenin to protect against desiccation, and they do have a dormant seed that possess food supply and thick seed coat. So this trait will give gymnosperm, the flowerless plant, and also angiosperm, the flower plants, bearing plants, the competitive advantage in land colonization better than bryophytes and also pteridophytes. So first, we're going to look on the third plant group, which is gymnosperm. They do have vascular system and seed, however no flower. And then um, the seed of the gymnosperm sporophyte are conspicuous trees and also shrub like this. Unlike seed of flowering plants, which are enclosed inside a chamber of ovary, the seed of gymnosperm are unprotected, which is naked seed as you can see here, and that are not protected within the ovary. Okay, not look. It does not look like the angiosperm. So in gymnosperm group, they can be divided into four phyla: Conifero, Cycad, Ginkgo, and Gnetophyta. First is Coniferophyta, phylum Coniferophyta of gymnosperm group. They are the most large gymnosperm phyla, and these conifer trees here are woody trees and also shrub that have a needle-like scale or scale-like leaf, and they do have very thicker cuticle and smaller surface area. So most are evergreen plant, while a few are deciduous, in which they will shed their leaf in during the fall. So the pine trees, which is under the phylum of Coniferophyta, produce two kinds of cones or strobilus. Okay, first they do have small male cone that produce sporangia that which yield microspore that will develop into pollen grain, which is referred to male gametophyte. And the larger female cone or the larger female strobilus will produce the ovules, in which it will yield a megaspore, the female gametophyte that will later um, generate to become ovum. Okay, So on each of the sporophytes, there are male and female strobilus or cone. So each of male cone has microsporophylls that have many microsporangia. Microsporangia contain numerous microsporocytes that will be developed into wing pollen grain. So wing pollen grain have generative cell and also tube cell that will involve in the sexual reproduction, and they depend on the wind and also the animal or insect as its agent of pollination. So for female corn or female strobilus, they has ovulate scale with two ovules. So inside the ovules, they are megasporocyte that will undergo meiosis, so yielding four haploid spore. So only one of the haploid spore will survive as a megaspore, and it will next yield two archegonia, which is the female gametophytes. So each spring, millions of pollen grain will drift away from the male strobilus, which is the pollen grain that contain the sperm. So during pollination, when the pollen grain um, meet the megaspore, some while land on the ovules of the female, leading to pollinations. So a germinating pollen grain will form a pollen tube that grow toward the egg, and it will take years before fertilization to occur. So the generative cell inside the pollen, okay, actually they will after pollination, during pollination, the pollen grain will divide, the generative cell of the pollen grain will divide into two sperm cells, in which only one sperm cell from generative cell will fertilize one egg of from the female gametophyte and develop into embryo with a hard seed coat. So the other sperm cell will degenerate, and the seed coat, okay, the hard seed coat has papery wings that will help them in the wing dispersal method. So the seed will develop into seedling and later into a mature corn sporophyte that bear the male and female corn or strobilus in their branches, and also the cycle will continue again. Here is how does it look like. You can read by yourself later. So this is how does the male cone look like. This is for female cone look like. Next, phylum of cycad of gymnosperm. They are palm-like trees and they bear massive cone-shaped strobili, as you can see here, very big corn or strobili that produce either the pollen or they can produce the ovule. Okay, female gametophytes. So individuals have large corn or strobili, and they do have a palm-like trees. And this thrive during the Mesozoic, but relatively few species exist today, meaning to say they are very, very old plants. So next is the phylum of Ginkgophyta of gymnosperm, in which they were a diverse group in dinosaur time, but only surviving species today are the ginkgo biloba, as you can see here, the ginkgo sit. They are remarkably hardy, deciduous, and show resistance to insect, disease, and also air pollutants. So this is how it looks like. It's a very nice tree. It has a very high tolerance to air pollutions, and it is very popular as the ornamental tree. Last but not least is the phylum of Gnetophyta of gymnosperm. They are the most unusual group phylum of gymnosperm, in which they live in a tropical and a desert area, in which there are two examples of genophytes are ephedra and also Welwitschia mirabilis that could be found in um, desert area. This is how it looks like. Welwitschia and also ephedra and ozonatum. Okay, and last group of plants are angiosperm, in which we're gonna look on the phylum of Enthophyta. So remember, angiosperm is a plant group that have vascular system. They're bearing a seed and also flower, in which the flower of angiosperm plants are specialized reproductive structure, in which they do have both male and female gametophytes. So of all divisions of plant, angiosperm is the most successful and the most diverse plant group, in which the most of the flowering plants will co-evolve with the pollinator, such as the insect, pests, and also the birds, becoming the dispersal agent. And this pollinator withdraw a nectar or pollen from a flower and transfer the pollen to a female reproductive part. So there are three major groups under angiosperm. We have basal angiosperm, such as water lily, magnolith, such as magnolia, avocado, nutmeg, and black pepper plant, edicot, including the familiar shrub, trees, except for conifers, and also the non-woody plant. And last is monocot, includes the grasses, lilies, and other major food crop grains. So for basal angiosperm group, they survive by the oldest lineage, a species that called as the Amborella trichopoda, which is a small shrub. And for magnolith of angiosperm, including a woody and herbaceous species. And for monocot and edicots, as you can see over here, the difference is that based on the seed, for monocot, the seed have only one cotyledon. For dicot or edicot, they have two cotyledon. Monocot, they have three flower pods. For dicot, 4 or 5 flower pods. Monocot, the vein of the leaves are parallel. For dicot, the vein of the leaf is look like a net. And for monocot, the pollen grain has one pore, as you can see here, one pore or known as a furrow. Meanwhile, for dicot, the pollen grain has three pore here, 1, 2, 3. And for monocot, the vascular plants bundle throughout the stem ground tissue. However, for dicot, the stem vascular bundles in a ring, as you can see over here. So in angiosperm life cycle, the diploid sporophyte has extensive root because they are vascular plants, and shoot system where it will retain and nourish the gametophyte and disperse the sperm-bearing pollens. And also in angiosperm life cycle, the double fertilization is one of the different characteristics that they have compared to other plant group. So let's look on how does the angiosperm flower structure looks like. They have a male and female parts. For male parts is known as the stamen, in which the stamen have answer. Here is where the pollen grain located, and they have a filament. Filament is the one that will hold the answer of the stamen, male for the male parts. So for the female parts, female structure, female organ parts or the structure known as a pistil, and pistil has three parts. We have the stigma, it's very sticky here. The style, a place or a location where the tube of the sperm will come, and the ovary part, which is will contain the ovule. So this part is known as receptacle. Sepal and petal parts are non-reproductive parts. Okay, petal, sepal, receptacle, 2 are non-reproductive parts. So, The pollen sac within the anther here, okay, the pollen sac within the anther contain numerous diploid cells called as a microsporocyte, in which they will undergo meiosis to produce four haploid cells called microspore. So each microspore will later develop into pollen grain, in which the pollen grain consists of tube cell and generative cell. So remember, during pollination, the generative cell will divide to form two non-motile sperm cells, in which only one of them will fertilize the egg and the other non-motile sperm cell will degenerate. Okay, so each young uh, and the other of sperm cell will merge with the polar nuclei to form the embryo. So each young ovule within the ovary contain a diploid cell. For the ovary, as you can see here, okay, the ovule inside the ovary, they will produce a megasporocyte. They will undergo meiosis to produce four haploid megaspore, and three of the megaspore they will degenerate. Meanwhile, only one of the megaspore will undergo mitosis without any cytoplasmic division to produce a multicellular female gametophyte, which is called as an embryo sac. So the embryo sac, inside the ovule, they will develop into three. They contain three antipodal cells, two polar nuclei cells, two synergid cells, and also only one egg that attach to the micropyle pore on the ovary, that known as a micropyle. So this micropyle will be a way for the sperm to access the egg later. So the egg and both of the polar nuclei, so as you can see here, these two polar nuclei and the egg are the one that will involve in the double fertilization, in which after pollination, which is the transfer of pollen grain to the female part, fertilization will occur, which is it is the fusions of the male and the female gamete happens. So in double fertilization, the egg will fuse with one sperm cell from generative cell here, and it will produce a zygote. Meanwhile, okay, the other sperm from the generative cell will fuse with the two polar nuclei, producing the embryo and becoming a seed. So the two polar nuclei will fuse with the second sperm cell, forming a triploid nutritive tissue called as the endosperm, and this tissue surrounds the developing embryonic plant in the seed and supplies them with nourishment. So after double fertilization, between the first sperm cell and also the egg, the ovule will develop into a seed, while the surrounding ovary will be developed into a fruit. Okay, so this is how the life cycle look like. Okay, first the pollen grain will pollinate at the stigma of the pistil, and then pollen tube will form. It goes to the micropyle, and generative cells of the sperm, generative cells of the pollen grain will produce two sperm, in which one sperm will fertilize the egg, becoming a zygote, and another second sperm will fuse with the two polar nuclei, producing the endosperm, and then the endosperm will become a seed. The endosperm will become the parts or of the plant, which is the flower or the fruit. Meanwhile, the fertilized zygote will becoming a seed. Okay, so this is the same. Therefore, in summary, the evolutions of gametophytes and sporophyte phase in plants. So, in most plants, there is alternation between development sporophytes and gametophytes. Life cycle changes as plant radiate into higher and drier place. So, in simple plants, gametophytes do dominate the life cycle. Okay, However, the gametophytes and sporophytes in pteridophytes are developed independently from each other. They do not depend on the female gametophyte. Okay? So in complex land plant cycle for the seed-bearing plant, the diploid phase dominates, in which both of the sporophytes and gametophyte develop on land, and they have fully escaped water dependency because they produce the seed. Okay, as you can see here, sporophyte depends on gametophyte for bryophyte group. For this one, large sporophytes and small independent, they do not dependent on the gametophyte, such as pteridophytes plant group. And this one, they reduce gametophytes dependent on sporophytes or seed plants. This one is not for angiosperm and also gymnosperm. Okay, so you can read this one later. So I think that's all for today, class. Thank you.